Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Small Business Shows. My name is Swire Ho from Garuda Promo, your host for the show. My guest today is Brooke Chapman from 3 by 3. Brooke started her career as a television journalist before moving into corporate communications and public relations role, advising leading brands across the mining, traveling, property, recruitment, and nonprofit sector. I'm going to have a fun conversation with Brooke because one of her expertise is help small business underperforming marketing function by transitioning them out of technical lead generation into a strategic marketing methodology. Before that, welcome to the show, Brooke.
Thanks very much, Swire. Really good to be here.
For a listener who might not yet be familiar with you and your work, what should we know about you and your work at 3 by 3?
Sure. So, look, we are a team of marketing strategists. We've all had careers in corporate, working for large multinationals as chief marketing officers. And what we saw in that time was that the large enterprises out there have really got strategy covered. They've got someone like me in their business every day that is having strategic conversations, is thinking about what the marketing team needs to look like now and into the future, and really engaging with strategic product and strategic services. But when you think about small to medium businesses, and when we talk about small to medium businesses, we're talking about businesses turning over less than $100 million. They really don't have access to that level of strategic thinking. So the situation that we see is that they end up just jumping to tactics, and that can result in a lot of waste and a lot of mediocre results. So myself and my co-directors, we sort of noticed this in the market, and we decided to develop a framework for SMBs to understand what strategic marketing is and to be able to make it accessible for them to engage with and use in their businesses. So that's why we came up with the 9 boxes, and now we work with small to medium businesses every day, getting them out of that tactical cycle and getting them on a more strategic path.
That's a really interesting point, especially if you watch any YouTube video or if you hang out on LinkedIn, you'll see all the strategy, all the tactics, right? Like you mentioned, that you can think of. But I want to ask, and as a small business, standpoint, big business can afford to hire all the strategists, all the coach, consultant company, right? But small business might or might not have the luxury of time. So I think that's why we like tactics, right? If we do this, it works for us, it get income generate. How would you advise small business like that? Because if income don't come in and flow into company, it could be the end of a small business.
Oh, totally. And look, we completely appreciate that. What we see a lot is small business leaders, and it's totally understandable. They're looking for that thing. They're looking for, what's the marketing channel? What's the marketing initiative? What's the campaign that's going to solve all my marketing problems and bring in all those leads? And, then I'll have it fixed. And it just kind of doesn't work that way. Marketing's not a project. It's something that's always on. You always have to be working on it and evolving it the same way that you always look at your P&L, the same way that you're always evolving your people strategy, the same way you're always evolving and working on your business strategy. So that's probably the first thing that we need to coach and mentor business leaders through, is that marketing is something that you need to be working on all the time. I think the other thing that is really important when we're talking about marketing for small businesses is that we need to be planned. We need to be organized. We need to understand what all of the foundations are of marketing. Really, the websites and the social media platforms and the digital advertising campaigns, that's just the window dressing. They're critically important, as you say, to win the week, win the month, bring the cash in. But those businesses that grow and develop revenue streams strategically over time, they really have closed all of their what we call strategic gaps. So, that is a critical component of the work that we do. And when I talk about strategic gaps, it's making sure that you've done things like reviewing your market position. Every business should be doing that every couple of years. It's also around understanding your customers. Have you done some research recently? That doesn't have to be a big, expensive exercise, but are you speaking to your customers outside of the day-to-day and understanding whether you're still solving their problems? Also, then you need to map the customer journey. When you know where your customers are on the pathway to purchase, that's incredibly powerful. You then know how you can influence that journey and where you need to be present to have the conversation with them. And then once you understand that journey, then you can map your channel mix. So rather than picking channels, we need to do all of that preparation work and then pick the channel mix based on what we know and what we've learned. So there's sort of some of the things that we see with businesses and what we try and help them out with at the start of our engagement so they can get on a better path.
Yeah, I know that you just touch on, setting up, the marketing process for success. Thinking about that, it does make sense, right? Mapping out your customer journey, knowing where they are so you can really talk to them and influence ultimately the decision. But I do wanted to go back, like a thinking of a small business or entrepreneur. It all sounded nice, but it takes time, right? What if we need something now? Would you, would you have something that guide them for like a short term or medium term or long term? This is what you should be doing, ultimately for the company.
Yeah, great question. And you're exactly right. Businesses don't have the luxury of just turning everything off. Let's plan for 6 months. Let's do strategy for 6 months and then turn everything on again once we know what we should be doing. So, when we work with clients, it's always a balance. So we need to look at what tactics are they engaged in? What can we, is there anything that we can optimize and fix? There are some things that, you always have to have an interim plan. There's some things you just have to keep running so that you've got cash coming into the business and leads coming into the business. So, we would suggest taking a look at some of those tactics, seeing if you can optimize them a little and, then leaving those. But at the same time, you need to be working on that strategy piece because that's the bigger play and that's where you get really successful. So, there is always a balance of looking at your short-term campaigns and making sure they're working for you as effectively as possible, but then building the marketing infrastructure for the future. So, you kind of always have to be looking at both.
Okay, that's a great answer. And you said there's 4 ways that we can look at, we if you're really technical, right? 4 ways that you could transition yourself to be more strategic marketing. Can you talk about? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So I just referenced them a moment ago. Number one is reviewing and refining your market position. So when we talk about position, it is the most critical of all of the 9 boxes of marketing and sales. It is the DNA of your business. It's the cornerstone of all marketing. And if you haven't got your market position right, it's very hard to get all of the other elements of marketing right. And this is what we see a lot. If you're not refining and reviewing your market position, then and then you do a new website or you do launch a new digital campaign or you do launch a suite of new brochures, they might just be off. They might just not be quite right. So, I would really encourage business leaders to take the time to look at their position. When we think about position, there's 4 components: market, product, service, and price. You need to know how you're performing in all of those 4 areas. That sort of encapsulates the business you are now. And then you need to think about the business that you want to be in the future. The second thing is, and it's very closely related to position, you need to do customer insights. You need to speak to your customers. You need to speak to your stakeholders. You need to understand what problem you're solving for them, what their buyer's journey looks like, how they want to have the conversation with you and where, what are the channels, and when we speak to customers and we get these pieces of information, that's really what we base the marketing strategy on. So we always advise clients that they should be basing their marketing strategy on customer insights and data as opposed to assumptions that can sometimes be misguided. So markets evolve and change, customer groups evolve and change. And what we've been through with the pandemic, we've seen that most customer groups have changed their behavior in some way. So if you haven't spoken to your customers and done some customer insights recently, either through an independent research team or doing that yourself, I would strongly encourage you to do so. And then once you've got those insights, the third thing that really helps you to close those strategic gaps is really understanding that buyer's journey. And it's important to note that buyers behave differently. Most businesses serve multiple customer groups. So it's important to map those journeys individually so we're not treating customers as if they're all the same. So tailor the journeys, tailor the messages to each customer group, and make sure that you're putting out marketing messages that are very relevant to each of those groups. And, it's really speaking to them and is going to resonate. And then finally, it's all about channel selection. If we understand our customers really well, if we've got a great market position, if we've got those buyers' journeys mapped out, then we should have a very clear view of the channels that are going to be effective for us. So this is one of the areas where we see leaders of small businesses make mistakes the most. They pick the wrong channels, and it's understandable because there's so many marketing channels out there now, and everybody's trying to scream for your attention. But you don't have to be present in every channel. You don't have to be, you don't have to be everywhere, but you do need to be impactful in the channels that you choose. So understanding which ones are right for you is really important, and then making sure that you're using them to best effect. So they're really the 4 ways that you can get out of being tactical and become more strategic as a small business leader.
Thank you. It just cover up, the basics and then beyond that. But I think I really agree with you that, finding the right audience and, knowing who you're talking to from your research. And then ultimately it kind of answer that channel question. If you know what kind of clients you have, they might only read magazines. They might only, hang out on LinkedIn. You could actually answer the question, save you a lot of money too, because if you're everywhere, all over the place, and you are not focused. My question will be: let's assume that the small business has been doing things right. They have a core group of repeat customers that order from them. What if they wanted to branch out and want to conquer, for example, another market? So how would you advise? Now they are breaking apart, right? They're not as laser focused. They might be really popular and generating income on one group, but now they're branching out. Should they have 2 strategy at this point, or what would you advise them to do?
Yeah, really good question. I think that your marketing strategy, it needs to be one, right? So you need to have one marketing strategy, but then within that, you can have different streams that serve different customers. So I
Hmm.
think the first thing that I would suggest for a business that is in this scenario is to make sure that you've really got your bases covered with your existing customer base. It's always about securing the core, and the customer base that is actually making you viable as a business. So make sure that you've really got that humming and that's working for you. There's so many horror stories of businesses that have looked to expand into another geographical market or looked to serve a new customer base, and they've deserted their existing one, and it's never a good result. So make sure that they're looked after. You've got your marketing is working with those people. You're building lifetime value and brand advocacy within that customer group, and once you're comfortable with that, then you can look to move into other markets, and then it's same thing, exactly what I mentioned before. Make sure that you've got the right position for that market. Make sure that you've spoken to some potential customers. Who do you want to attract in those markets? And you've got the information to be able to make informed decisions. So that's the thing about our framework. You roll it out the same way every time. You want to apply to a new geography. You want to apply to a new customer base. It's the same thing. It's tried and tested, and it's worked for thousands of businesses. So that's what we do. But definitely, I would make sure your existing customer base is fine and happy, and then look at the new one.
Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of good, important point, because if you really know, and if you have the luxury to survey the client, you can actually, if you're a small business, chances are you probably know those people really well. Think about talking to your top 5 client. Why did you buy from us, really? Like, maybe take them out for lunch, right? You ask them those questions. And I think, if you agree with me that, can you find similarity? Can you find others that have the same personality, company size, whatever that you're good at doing, and then look for other people out there? So uh, that might be a very inexpensive way to do it, and exactly who those messages are going out for. So again, going back to, obviously small business have smaller budget, right? If you do it right, it could be meaningful, but if you don't do it right, it just goes into the bottom of the ocean.
Oh, completely. And we find that SMBs are a little bit worried about research because of the cost. And I think that's fair enough. When I was working in corporate roles, the research budgets can really be quite large. But there are a range of independent businesses that are providing research, in a very value for money way. We have a research team in our business, and quite often, we'll only speak to, between 12 and 15 customers. So that's quite a small research project, but we get enough that we're able to build up a really good picture of what is going on for those customers, what their needs are, what the journeys look like, and then we're able to base the marketing strategy on that. You can do a bit of it yourself. As you mentioned, having some conversations. Be prepared for those conversations, though. Go in with the discussion guide. Be very clear about what you're trying to get out of them, because you only get one chance to do that. And then the other thing is you need to follow it up. After you have those conversations, there are a range of free survey tools online that you can set up and regularly check in with your customers, either after they purchase from you or maybe just every 6 months or every 12 months, to find out if they're happy and to gauge satisfaction and maybe get a couple of comments. We find sometimes businesses, when we say, look, you need to do customer insights, they say, oh, look, we know our customers really well. But then we do the insights and they're always surprised at something that comes out, and it might be good and it might be bad, but and you can learn from both. But really checking in with customers outside of the day-to-day and trying to learn more about why they buy from you and why they choose you over competitors is such a powerful thing for your marketing plan.
I think you're touching a really good point, and then is to follow up, immediately, or within a reasonable timeline, after maybe the sale of your product, or maybe you hit a certain milestone on your services, right? You want to make sure, are you happy? I think that's a really important question. Maybe they're not happy, right? Maybe you didn't return the phone call or email like the way that they wanted it. If you really check in, with a phone call or with email, you can fix it, before they reach the point that I'm going to fire you today. So, and then that's too late, because if you find out, when the problem start arise and you can fix it, then that's how they become a loyal customer, because they know when they tell you something that is in the concern or maybe is a problem and you fix it, the people take notice. Because nowadays when you call, especially for a bigger company, you never get through, and then whatever that they take, your concern, they're not going to fix it, unfortunately.
That's absolutely right. Customer service is very closely linked to marketing, and some people are surprised when we say that, but marketing to your existing customers by delivering them really great service, by checking in with them and seeing how the experience was, by improving and adapting the experience if they give you some negative feedback. That is also important, because it is much easier to market and to keep an existing customer than it is to bring in a new one. So, a lot less expensive. So, certainly that is a critical component, is around giving people a great experience and making sure they've got an opportunity to tell you if they're unhappy.
Yeah, it goes back to what you said about customers' journeys too. And if you're smart, you should take notes of how they prefer to be contacted. Because nowadays, there are people who like doing Zoom, there are people only text only, and I have clients that don't want me to call them. Texting, email is fine, but they don't want to take phone calls. So I take notes, and you just, like you said, Brooke, customer service, how they want to be contacted, what kind of methods should we serve them better. So these are the things that we could tweak. I think that's kind of a tactic, right, to go within the overall strategy.
Oh, definitely. And this is where it can go wrong with your marketing if you're thinking about things from your perspective. What you as a small business leader want to do, how you want to engage, how you want to put yourself forward, how you want to interact. It's really not about that. It's about what the customer wants. So thinking about things from their perspective, taking the time and trouble to ask about how they want to hear from you, how they want to have conversations, how they want to engage, that is incredibly important. You will always learn things from that process, and you will be ahead of the curve in terms of really being in touch with that important customer group and knowing what they need.
Yeah, and I think if you do it right, the follow-up question, that I do for my client is, after you know that they're happy and they're satisfied with your work, the next question that I will be, do you happen to know any colleagues or company that might be able to use our product and services? So that's your next, and that's how you can map it out. You can actually make sure that they're happy and ask for what you wanted.
Yeah, definitely. And this is I'm glad you raised this. This is one of the most powerful channels that any business can engage with, but it's often overlooked. So, it is much better to invest in your existing customer base and them giving you referrals and recommendations, and them, talking to, like, customers know other customers like them, right? People surround themselves by people that are similar and consume similar products and services. So, we work with businesses a lot of the time to, if they've got, we work with businesses a lot that have got customers that, come back again and again. Like 80% of their revenue might come from repeat business, right? That's incredibly powerful. That means that, first of all, you've got a great product. Second of all, you've got a loyal customer base. So they keep coming back, so they're happy. How do we harness that happiness and turn it into a channel for you? So we regularly work with businesses to establish loyalty programs and referral incentive schemes. And, it is so much more powerful having a person advocate for you who has used your product or service to their friends or to their colleagues than it is for you to invest in an ad that goes in cold to someone, via a range of different channels. So, definitely think about strategic partnerships. Think about your existing customers and how you can utilize them to do some of your marketing for you.
I think one quick tip is you have to do it soon. You don't want to wait for 6 to 9 months and then when you call them, like, who are you? You want to
Yeah.
do it fresh, while they're, I think, like, going deeper in the example that you suggest, Brooke, if they're really happy, once they, you maybe sold them something or maybe you finish a project for them, that's when they're most happy. When people are happy, and then if you let them know that, promote us, please, they're more willing to do it. And 9 months later, they might really forgotten who you are already.
Yeah, definitely. It's you've got these small windows of opportunity and you've got to take advantage of them. So, we see this a lot in e-commerce. If you're not on top of that post customer journey and your communications to customers after they make that first purchase, you can be forgotten really quickly. So, we've got to be planned. We've got to think about when we're setting up, how are people buying from us, and how do we engage with them post purchase? That's the most critical time for a customer is between the first purchase and the second purchase. That's where we lose a lot of people. So, making sure that you set up some automated communications that get sent out through your CRM. Or if you're a very small business, maybe some personalized communications to clients. That goes a long way, making sure that they've got your product or service, they're happy with that, you're checking in, and you genuinely want to hear their feedback so that you can improve. And then, as I mentioned, certainly following it up and making sure that they're telling their friends and their contacts.
That's a great point. And if like you said, if you follow the customer journey, you know exactly what needs to be done. So you don't find the right software or find the right tool. So, at the end, you're counting on your bottom line. That would be cheaper using that word than if you have to scramble and try to find something that works for you. So plan it out, and then you know exactly how it needs to be executed. Going back to the technical, like what needs to be done. Is it a phone call? Is it email? Or is it take take them out for lunch? So determine that before you actually start. I think that's a really great point. Going for the strategic and then to what actually happened day to day.
Totally. I'm working with a soft furnishings business at the moment. They produce very high-end rugs, cushions and throws, and they will charge sort of upwards of $5,000 for a rug. So it's quite a premium product. And when someone buys one of their rugs, a week later they will receive an email around how to care for that rug with a complete guide. That's one of the pain points. People have got this beautiful, expensive rug, and then they've got kids and pets, and they're like, how do I look after this thing? So the week later you get that. And then you also get a styling guide. You've got this beautiful rug. How do you then accessorize it with other accents in the home? What does that look like? And, so it's about thinking about what are the pain points once they've got your product. is it smooth sailing from there, or are there things that they're worried about? How do you solve those problems? And what we've created with this customer is a journey where the person who's bought the rug, they just become so embedded with the brand because they've been nursed through this journey. It might be their first big rug purchase, and we've looked after them so well through this series of communications that when they need to buy the second rug or the next rug for their next house, they are not going to go anywhere else. That's the dream.
Yeah, that's really good advice, and you can actually do that every single time if you actually plan it, and with the 4 steps that you talked about. If you do it right, maybe there are differences, right? Different personality, but in general, that what you should do, and then it gives you a framework, right? If they go this way, this is what needs to be done. You don't want it to scramble and try to find something else, right? When it happens, so you're actually ready and prepare for it.
Yeah, absolutely. You do need to think about the different ways that customers go, the way you can map out those different pathways, and this is where having something like a CRM is really powerful for businesses, because you're able to, in most platforms, you're able to map those journeys and then determine how you communicate with them, and then sort of build that into your system. So, certainly having those platforms and processes is critical to the process to keep you organized and to make it manageable over time.
Yeah, especially if you're a small business trying to do, grow your business by working for a big business. There's a lot of system process, different personnel, changes there. Keep your CRM. If you are able to know more about their company internal process better than they do, then you're doing something right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Record keeping is so important. Having that central repository of data. Also, being able to track customers over time in terms of how they're engaging with your business. How many engagements does it take for a purchase to occur? What are the most successful comms you have that elicit a purchase or elicit an engagement? CRMs are only as powerful as the information that you put into them, and then you need to be doing ongoing tracking and reporting to make sure that you're getting the benefit of those systems. So again, that's an area that we work on with businesses around optimizing this CRM and making sure that, most businesses have got a lot of data and a lot of value in that data, but they might not necessarily be mining that correctly. So really important that you take a look at your sales figures and your revenue, your customer information, and, where is the value in your customer base, and are you utilizing that as best you can?
Yeah, that's a really great point. A lot of companies just, running out space in the hard drive or servers, and they don't really use it. No one really, extracting that data. If you data can tell you a lot of stories. Where you get most of your money, who are your top 10 client. If you're not taking advantage of that, then when someone like yourself asks them who give you the most business this year, if you don't know, then and that's why people get in trouble because they don't know which group serve them the most, and you can actually answer the question about channel, the customer journey, knowing who actually give you the most revenue.
Yeah, definitely. The marketing strategies, the best marketing strategies we see are a great balance and combination of internal data analysis. So what are the drivers of your business? What's going on inside your business with your customers and the value that's sitting there? And then combining that with the external around the customer insights. Also, knowing your market, knowing your competitor set, understanding, the depth of your market and the slice that you could get. We put those together, and then we're able to create a really great marketing strategy that a business can take forward.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you this big question, and we're almost at the end of November. What do you see? It's starting off. We're going next year now. I can't believe it. In 2023, what would you say are some of the effective channels for marketing that we should take notice out there?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think I'll probably go back to my point a little while ago that you don't need to be everywhere. Be selective and pick the right, most impactful channels for you. But what we're seeing at the moment in the market is that there's basically no business that can afford to not engage with digital. Digital is it's a table stake at the moment. all consumers are expecting that you have a good website, that you've got some sort of presence to reach out to them through, SEO and digital advertising campaigns. So you do have to have a presence on digital, but make sure that you do your research. You can spend a lot of money in digital and not get a lot back. So make sure that you're doing your research, that you've got those foundational gaps closed that I talked about before, and you know exactly how to reach out to people through those channels. What we see is that customers know so much about businesses these days before they have any type of meaningful engagement with them. They're Googling you, they're looking at reviews, they're doing all sorts of online reconnaissance. So you have to have that presence, and you have to be positioned as a leader in your market. You have to be visible. So that would be the first one, is you've got to have a presence in digital. The other thing is that particularly for B2B businesses, looking at strategic partnerships. So again, this is often overlooked, but looking at strategic partnerships, who are the stakeholders and the influencers in your markets that have the potential to be able to refer business to you, or to really shape how consumers make decisions. So at the moment, we're working with a residential home builder, and they were advertising all throughout the city that they operate in through billboards. And they thought that was the best channel for them, but really what that was a bit of a spray and pray approach. They were putting billboards up, they were spending tens of thousands of dollars every month, but they had no idea what it was bringing in for them, and the answer was very little. We came in and worked with them and determined that a range of strategic partnerships with architects, with land agents, with local real estate agents was going to be a lot more effective. So paying those local real estate agents an incentive when they referred business to them turned out to be a lot more cost effective than the billboards. And it was also generating a lot more in the terms of leads. And those leads were much better quality because essentially that real estate agent had vetted them. So think about, who are your customers speaking to, looking for advice? Who is influencing them? And then how can you develop relationships with those people or those organizations? So again, to recap, digital marketing, you have to have a presence and you have to be really strong in that space. And then also look at some strategic partnerships and where you might be able to influence customers through a third party.
Yeah, those are really great points. I wish we have 4 more hours. I could dive deeper into each of those sectors. Brooke, for listener who might have individual question or want to go deeper to explore which strategy works for them, what would be a best way to reach out to you?
The best way is through our website, so 3by3.com, THREEBY number 3.com. And what I have, Swire, for all of your listeners is an offer. We run an online benchmarking survey with all of our clients. So we're prepared to offer that free of charge for your listeners. If they go to our website, put in an inquiry, they just make a note in the inquiry that they heard this podcast, we will send you a link to our benchmark. And what that benchmark does is that it allows you to self-assess your marketing function, and then we can see how you're performing across each of the 9 areas of sales and marketing, and we can give you some commentary and some recommendations around how you could improve that. So we'd be really happy to have a conversation with anyone who's interested.
Thank you so much, Brooke. I'll include the link on the show notes, and really enjoyed our conversation today.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.